If we're talking about the biggest rap beef of the 2020s, it's not even close. Forget Drake versus Kendrick, forget old school Jay-Z versus Nas. This generation's heavyweight title fight has been NBA YoungBoy versus Lil Durk. Two of the most dominant street rappers alive, two completely different fan bases, and one beef that's bigger than music. This is hip hop's Cold War, and depending on which side you're on, you might think one of these guys is untouchable while the other is cooked. And that's the crazy part. This beef ain't just about bars, it's about street politics, record labels, family ties, and a fan war that legit makes Twitter and YouTube feel like a battlefield every time one of these dudes drop a single. Like you post "Why be better" under the wrong Instagram comment, and suddenly you've got 12-year-olds in your DMs threatening to hack your Roblox account. That's how deep this runs. But let's rewind for a second, because to really understand how insane this beef is, you gotta know where both of these guys were in their careers when it all popped off. Lil Durk had been grinding for years. He came up in Chicago's drill scene, watched damn near all his homies get locked up or killed, and he was right on the edge of stardom when he linked with Drake in 2020 for Laugh Now Cry Later. That was Durk's moment. He wasn't just the underground street rapper anymore. He was Billboard official. He was Grammy level visible. Meanwhile, NBA YoungBoy was in a completely different lane. He was already dominating YouTube like no rapper we've ever seen. He had millions of fans who streamed everything he dropped, even when the industry tried to act like he didn't exist. YoungBoy was basically blackballed from radio, award shows, and mainstream playlists, but he still kept hitting #1 on the charts off pure fan loyalty. Dude had his fan base so locked in that he could have dropped a mixtape called YoungBoy Reads the Phone Book, and it would have done 100 million streams in a week. So on one side, you've got Durk, finally mainstream, rubbing shoulders with the Drakes and Lil Babies of the world. On the other side, you've got YoungBoy, the outsider, hated by labels but worshipped like a cult leader by his fans. And stuck right in the middle of all this was King Von. Now, Von was Durk's protege, his right-hand man. He had just blown up with Crazy Story, and was building his own legacy as one of the rawest street rappers out of Chicago. The world was literally watching him become a superstar in real time. But then his life was cut short outside an Atlanta nightclub in 2020 during a fight involving Quando Rondo, one of YoungBoy's artists. And that's where this beef goes from music to something way deeper. Because Von's death didn't just hit Durk on a personal level, it created a permanent line in the sand between OTF and YoungBoy's camp. From that point forward, every single Durk song, every single YoungBoy verse, every Instagram caption, every music video prop, fans were dissecting it, connecting it back to this war, and it split the culture right down the middle. So before we even break down the dissies, the subliminals, the albums, and the industry chess moves, I need you to do one thing. Comment below whose side you're on, because whether you roll with OTF or you scream "Why be better" until your lungs collapse, this is the beef that defines our era. Before we get into the diss tracks and the memes, we gotta rewind, because this beef doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's rooted in two completely different come-ups. Let's start with NBA YoungBoy. He's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, same city as legends like Boozy and Kevin Gates, but YoungBoy carved his own lane. He was literally dropping mixtapes back to back as a teenager, and the streets loved him because he wasn't polished, he wasn't industry, he was raw. He was uploading videos straight to YouTube, no fancy rollouts, no marketing plans, just straight music. And that DIY approach turned him into a monster. By the time most rappers are still begging DJs to spin their records, YoungBoy was doing hundreds of millions of views on YouTube with no industry machine behind him. But of course, there was always a shadow hanging over him. The legal issues, house arrest, probation, beefs in the streets. YoungBoy's rap sheet was running almost as long as his discography. That's why fans connected with him, though. He wasn't some label-made superstar. He was the kid with one foot in the streets and one foot in the studio. And somehow he kept surviving. Now on the other side, you've got Lil Durk. He comes from Chicago's drill scene, a movement that shocked the rap game in the early 2010s. Chief Keef might have opened the door, but Durk was right there, building his own crew. OTF, only the family. And that family part really mattered to him. Durk wasn't just rapping for himself, he was putting his people on, carrying the weight of his neighborhood and representing Chicago to the fullest. But his come-up was way slower than YoungBoy's. Durk had label issues, legal troubles of his own, and for a while it felt like he'd never break through. He was respected, but he wasn't on that superstar tier yet. That all started changing around 2019-2020 when he stayed consistent, dropped projects that actually stuck, and then finally got that cosign every rapper dreams about, Drake. When Laugh Now Cry Later dropped, suddenly Durk wasn't just the drill kid from Chicago anymore. He was mainstream. He was on the Billboard charts. Now here's where the worlds collide. King Von Von was Durk's protege, his right-hand man. He had the charisma, the storytelling ability, and the street resume that made people believe every word he said. And he was just starting to hit his stride with records like Crazy Story. Von was OTF's future. But then enters Quando Rondo, an artist signed under NBA YoungBoy. Quando had his own buzz, but he was also deeply tied to YB's camp. And for reasons that are still debated, Quando and Von had tension brewing. People argue about whether it was street politics, rap egos, or just bad timing. But whatever it was, it came to a head in November 2020. Outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta, Von and Quando's crews ran into each other. Words were exchanged, fists started flying, and then shots rang out. Von was killed that night, and even though NBA YoungBoy was nowhere near Atlanta, fans and the media immediately tied his name to the situation. Why? Because Quando was his artist, and in rap, affiliations are everything. If your guy is involved, people assume you're involved. From that moment on, it wasn't just about Durk and YoungBoy as rappers, it was about two camps, two fan bases, two entire movements. And this is where the beef stops being rap beef and starts feeling like a Netflix crime documentary. Back in the day, beef was just, I drop a diss, you drop a diss, and we'll see who sells more records. Now it's like you need a flow chart, a court transcript, and 3 FBI informants just to keep up with who's dissing who. Once King Von was gone, the energy in rap shifted. Fans were watching Durk's every move to see how he'd respond, and YoungBoy's every move to see if he'd double down. And that's when the music started turning into open warfare. The first real shot came from YoungBoy with his song Bring the Hook. It wasn't just a diss, it was a nuke. He name-dropped O-Block, one of the most notorious neighborhoods in Chicago, and basically the heart of Durk and Von's legacy. That line lit up the internet instantly. Chicago fans were furious, Durk's supporters felt disrespected, and YoungBoy's fans, they loved it. They treated it like he just declared war on an entire city. Durk didn't let that slide. He clapped back with AHHH, one of his coldest diss tracks. The rollout was genius. He used Instagram posts to tease the track, dropped cryptic captions, and had the whole internet waiting for it. When it finally dropped, it was nothing but straight disrespect aimed right at YoungBoy. The beat, the delivery, everything about it screamed, I'm outside, what's up? But YoungBoy wasn't done. He dropped Colors, a whole project that felt like one big middle finger to Durk and OTF. Song after song had lines and subliminals clearly meant for Durk. And even though the industry was blackballing him, Colors still did crazy numbers just off YouTube and streaming. That's how loyal his fan base was. Durk, meanwhile, was in his 72220 era, and this was interesting because Durk was balancing two sides of himself. On one hand, he was making mainstream-friendly songs about love and pain, tracks that could play on the radio, appeal to the ladies, and keep him in that Drake Lil Baby lane. But then, in the same breath, he'd turn around and drop straight-up street records, sending coded shots at YoungBoy. It was like he was living a double life. 1 foot in Billboard, 1 foot in Baton Rouge. What made this era wild was how every single line either of them dropped was being dissected. Fans became rap detectives, pulling out lyrics and comparing them like forensic evidence. A throwaway bar about chains or guns suddenly turned into, oh, that's definitely about Durk. Or, nah, he's talking about YoungBoy. It got so deep that people were analyzing music videos frame by frame. If someone wore a green hoodie, it was a sign. If someone posted in front of a mural, it was confirmation. The joke writes itself. These dudes had Twitter detectives treating genius annotations like they were FBI case files. Exhibit A. In verse 2, at exactly 113, you can clearly hear a subliminal aimed at NBA YoungBoy. Like, bro, this is rap, not Law and Order. But that's how intense the beef was. Every word was ammo. Every song was a move in the chess game. YB had this whole era of rocking green flags, which became his new symbol. Fans didn't even need lyrics anymore. The color scheme alone was a diss, and the trolling didn't stop there. YB was on house arrest for a lot of this, recording videos from his living room, and still somehow stirring up the entire rap game without leaving the couch. He even launched a Stop the Violence campaign, which was hilarious because half the songs he dropped before and after that were violent as hell. Durk was keeping things just as petty, but in a more polished way. He'd post pictures in front of King Von Merle's, drop subliminal captions that everyone knew were aimed at YB, and most importantly, he started timing his drops to clash with YoungBoy's releases. Every time YB announced something, Durk would suddenly have a new single, a new snippet, or an album announcement. And while all this was going on, the industry itself had to pick sides. You could almost map out the alliances like a rap Avengers chart. On Durk's side, you had Lil Baby, 21 Savage, and Meek Mill, all rocking with OTF. On YoungBoy's side, you had Quando Rondo, who was basically YB's loyal soldier, and Lil Baby, who doubled down and dropped a whole joint project with him just to show the world he was riding with Team YB. Durk and Lil Baby dropped The Voice of the Heroes in 2021. That album went #1 and proved Durk had officially leveled up into mainstream superstardom. YB and DaBaby dropped Better Than You in 2022, and while it got attention, it flopped compared to expectations. It didn't even come close to Voice of the Heroes in terms of sales or cultural impact. YB turned YouTube into his personal record label. While other rappers were worried about playlist placement on Spotify, YB was dropping random songs and videos on YouTube like it was SoundCloud in 2013, and each one was doing millions of views instantly. He showed that he didn't need industry love to still dominate. The petty stuff didn't stop at music either. We're talking unfollows, subliminal IG lives, tweets, and one of the funniest moments of the beef, when Durk teased an album drop the same exact day as YB. And even though that face-off never fully materialized, it showed just how deep the competition ran. Every move one of them made, the other had a counter move ready. For Lil Durk, the beef cemented him as the street general who made it to the big leagues. He carried the pain of losing Von. He turned that into motivation, and he became the face of Chicago's new era. Durk became industry approved, the guy who could make a record with Morgan Wallen one day and diss YB the next. He found that balance between mainstream success and street credibility. For YB, the beef only added to his mythology. He became the outlaw of rap, blackballed, hated by the industry, but untouchable because of his fan base. He leaned into being the outsider, and in today's internet-driven music world, that's almost more powerful than being industry approved. But the real reason this beef still matters comes back to King Von. That's why festivals are still cautious about booking them on the same bills. Nobody wants the beef to spill into real life at a show. And let's be real. The fans are the fuel here. They don't let it die. Every time one of these guys drops, Twitter explodes, YouTube comments flood with YB better or OTF running it. Memes, fake rumors, lyric breakdowns. It's all part of the ecosystem that keeps the beef alive. At this point, the beef isn't just about Durk and YoungBoy anymore. It's about what they represent. Durk is the industry's chosen one, the survivor who turned loss into legacy. YoungBoy is the rebel, the fan-made superstar who doesn't need industry validation. Neither side is backing down, and honestly, both sides keep winning in their own way. This is hip-hop's Cold War. It's not ending anytime soon. So here's the question. Who you got winning this? Is it Lil Durk, the guy with the industry cosigns, billboard hits, and street respect? Or is it NBA YoungBoy, the outlaw who's blackballed but still pulls millions of views like it's nothing? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that subscribe button, and stay tapped in for more beef breakdowns from Fake Famous. Because trust me, this story is far from over.